as said, Pomaah and now Pomaah Karikari. And we'll be talking about the project implementation, looking at the post-contract activities. My presentation would have a brief introduction. We'll just have a brief look into pre-contract activities and how it dovetails into, and we will look at the post-contract activities, looking at a few activities that are conditions precedent to the commencement of the works. And then we'll look at a few activities that are due immediately after commencement, activities during the execution of the works, and then the activities at the end of the contract, and then the conclusion. So we are looking at post-contract activities, but what is a contract? Briefly, is a legal document which is enforceable by law. There must be an offer and an acceptance. In a construction contract, typically, you have the parties being the employer and the contractor. There's always this third party in the construction contract who isn't a party to the contract, but plays a very active role. And here we'll have an engineer. In some other contracts, you can have a project manager or an employer's representative. But these people do play a key role in the administration and management of the contract. And the contract becomes a means because it's made up of a number of documents. It becomes a means of delivering the project. So it has the conditions of contract, it has the specifications, it has the drawings or the employer's requirements, whatever you will need to enable that the project is delivered. In this particular presentation, I'll be making references to the FIDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers publication for engineering works, building and engineering works designed by the employer, which is normally called the Red Book. And then some references to be made to the design build, that is the Yellow Book, because that's what we predominantly use in our setup here. So a few pre-contract activities. So they are done to before the formation of contract. Key ones towards the end of this process are the procurement or the tendering process, negotiations, and then leading to the formation of the contract. So at the end of a tender process, you end up with an award of contract or the issuance of the letter of acceptance to the successful bidder. Normally, in the most tendering tender documents have clauses, and at the end of those clauses, towards the end of it, you will have a few that lead to the issuance of that, and then also the issuance of the submission of the performance security. We'll recall that in the tender documents, there's usually a requirement of submission of a bid security. The bid security basically is given by all the parties, all the tenderers, and then the winning tender's own is returned to him after he has submitted the performance security. One of the conditions for which the tender security can be called on is if the winning party fails to submit a performance security. So one of the key pre-contract, but also features in the contract activities, post-contract, is the issuance of the letter of acceptance. In the FIDIC forms, the red and yellow book, the issuance of the letter of acceptance constitutes the formation of contract. So the contractor will have submitted his offer in his letter of tender, and then your letter of acceptance more or less says, I have accepted your offer. And then in the issuance of the letter of acceptance, you have a few things like the accepted contract sum that would have been agreed or what would have been submitted, subject to any discounts or negotiations that would have happened. And then you also require the winning bidder to submit his performance security. So the performance security features both in the pre-contract and also in the construction contract, which is a requirement, mostly in public works. If it's a private contract between you and a friend of yours, you can decide not to have a performance security. But then in public works, it's a requirement. And in the under subclause 4.2, is required that at least within 28 days of the issuance of the letter of acceptance, the winning bidder will submit his performance security in the form that would have been attached to the tender document, or in the whatever form you will give the contractor to submit it in. It's usually issued in the form of a bank guarantee or a performance bond. And then normally works will not commence or any form of payment will not be made without the approval of the performance security. It is valid from the issuance, from when it is issued to the issuance of the performance certificate, that is at the tail end of the contract. So it has to be valid to it. The cases whereby you can make a call on the performance security in the course of the contract is when the contractor fails to extend it. So previously, the form of the performance securities was such that it was open-ended. It was basically valid until the issuance of the performance security or the defense liability certificate, as it was in the 1987 form of contract. But then now some institutions prefer to have an end date. So if that is the case, you tend to have it being the facility being valid beyond a number of days, beyond this expiry date. So within that particular period, if the contractor is made aware that you should extend it and he doesn't, then you can have the chance to call upon the performance security. If the contractor fails to pay an amount due to the employer, resulting out of the employer's claims, or as a determination from the engineer, or if the contractor fails to remedy a default after he's been told by the employer or the employer's agent assistant that he should go remedy a default, or if there's a termination, then these are the reasons under which you would want to call on your performance security. The payment of advance has been added to the pre-commencement activities because sometimes under the condition, sometimes we put it as a condition precedent to commencement. So the contract may allow for the payment of advance payment. It's not a must, but if the party or the employer intends to, then provision must be made in the appendix to tender that the advance payment will be paid. It is backed by an advance payment guarantee. So, and it's supposed to be an interest-free loan to enable the contractor mobilize and then start work on site. The advance payment is repaid by the contractor as he undertakes the works on the site through the deductions in the IPCs. And then another key tool here is also the pre-commencement meeting. It's not in the conditions of contract, but it's a management tool whereby the parties represented by the contractor and then the engineer who is acting on behalf of the employer, and sometimes the employer meet to discuss a few issues to commence the works. So we'll look at the lines of communication between the parties, the employer, engineer, and then the contractor. So if the contractor wants to write to the employer, how does he do it? So it goes through the engineer to the employer and then vice versa. And then the state of mobilization of both the contractor and the engineer. So we are looking at the equipment, the personnel materials, the setting up of the campsite. And then there are also sometimes engineers' facilities provided for in the contract, which the contractor is required to provide. Our standard specification states that section 1.22 states that the contractor has a period of 60 days to make this provision. Beyond that, the provision of those facilities come at the cost of the contractor. And then you have the ownership of these facilities revert to the employer at the end of the project. And then we also look at the state of the designs, if there be modifications from the tender documents, when they'll be released. It is important that the designs are released, especially in the red book, where the employer does the designs, so in good time, so as not to delay the contractor's program of works. So if the contractor does suffer delay as a result of a delay in the issuance of drawings, then there's likely to be a claim for time and then some cost. Also, if we are looking at the yellow book, whereby the contractor does the designs, he has to also notify within a particular number of days any errors he has within the employer's requirements, so that can be dealt with, and then we'll move on. And then access to site. It is the employer's responsibility to give access and possession of the site to the contractor. Sometimes, depending on whether certain sections of the site are available or not, due to compensation issues or relocation issues, the sections that are not ready will not be available, but the sections that are ready can be made available to the contractor for works to start. So if these sections are known, those sections can be put into the contract. If not, then the contractor is informed that you'll be made, sections will be made available in parts, and then also so as not to delay the contractor his works. The utilities will need to be relocated if there need be, and then appropriate compensation paid to property affected persons. These are activities that are undertaken by the employer in conjunction with the contractor, because virtually the construction limits and the limit of the reservation for which the works will be undertaken will have to be set out by the contractor. So we come to commencement. So commencement date provided for in the contract is at clause 8.1. If no date is provided for in appendix to tender, then it is 42 days from the receipt of the letter of acceptance. No, initially when I mentioned the letter of acceptance, indicated that it is issued to signify the formation of contract. If there's no letter of acceptance and there's a contract agreement, then the date of the contract agreement will signify the date of the receipt of coming to force of the contract. So you look at it here, we say 42 days from the receipt of the letter of acceptance. So the date of the contract agreement becomes the date of receipt of the contract letter of acceptance. So there are some times whereby we will have some conditions precedent to the issuance of the letter of acceptance, the issue of the notice to commence. And this will be sometimes the payment of advance payment or access to site. It's not the default, it's not, it's per the parties' discussions and negotiations. There may not be the need for any negotiation conditions precedent. Once the notice is provided, the contractor should start work on site. So activities immediately after commencement, we're looking at insurance. So the works need to be insured. Third party also who may come into contact within the area or be affected, also there's insurance. This is provided for in clause 18 of the conditions of contract. Other types would include workmen compensation, also insurance for the equipment and vehicles on site. It will also include the employer staff who will come on site as well. Normally, it's taken out by the contractor in the name of the contract for the employer, but then the premiums are paid through the provisions in the contract under either the BOQ or the schedule for payment. We have the program of works. The contract provides that a program of works is issued within 28 days of the notice to commence, as provided for in subclause 8.3. So the program should include the order in which the contractor intends to execute the works, the sequencing and timing of inspections and tests, include supporting reports such as construction methodology, details of personnel, equipment required for the major stages. We also require that certain things like the environmental management plan, the traffic management plan, health and safety plan, all of these things are necessary for the execution of the work and the management of the works. So it need to be provided as well for the engineer to review and then give a no consent to it. so that it becomes working documents for the contractor to use. The engineer is required to give a notice to the program to state that it complies or does not comply with the contract. If we don't say anything, it's assumed that the program is fine and it would be usable for managing the project and also assessing progress on the site. If at any time during the work, you realize that the program is not serving its purpose or that the contractor's progress lags behind or activities are not as at par as with the program, then it's required that the contractor updates and submits the required and updated program. If he does not do it, the engineer should request the contractor to submit an updated program, which is consistent with the actual progress. There's also the setting up of the dispute adjudication board. It has become quite prominent in the 99 formal contract that a dispute adjudication board be set up. So these are, we have the two types of a full term or an ad hoc DAB. A full term is provided for in the FIDIC 99 and an ad hoc in the yellow book. 99 yellow book. However, newer versions of the FIDIC books of 2017 and the 22 provide for full term for both the red and the yellow and all their forms of contract. Subclause 20.4 provide for the obtaining of a DAB decision, so that if you have them there, they are supposed to be part of the project, know what is happening, and help avert disputes, and not just make a determination when the dispute occurs or is referred to them. So some of the activities that also during the execution of the works would include field control. You know, as I said earlier, the contract document is made up of a number of documents. Apart from the conditions of contract, you have your technical specifications, your drawings, your bill of quantities, and other manuals that also are implied within the condition, the contract. So this help in the control of quality control, quantity control. Quality, you're looking at the material, the workmanship, geometric control. And then you're looking at the quantity measurement of works as provided for in clause 12 and the variations 13.1. The testing and inspections, the contractor is required to institute a quality assurance system as part of his documentation. And then the tolerances and the testing requirements are provided for in section 2 of the standard specification. The contractor is also required to set up a lab and provide the necessary equipment for ensuring quality and testing. Taking of samples, informing the engineer of when tests will be done, rejection of works, all of these provisions are made for under the conditions of contract. So we have to see what happens at each point in time and make the necessary reference. Record keeping is very key. Normally, we tend to just rely on the progress reports, maybe monthly and quarterly, but every staff on site should have a site diary indicating whatever is happening at the site, wherever they are. The contractor is obliged to provide his progress report under subclause 4.21. So every monthly, he's required to submit a progress report. You have correspondence file of all the correspondence between the parties. And then you have the RFI, your test certificates of material test that has been done, records of test results, records of contractor's plant and equipment and his personnel on site. You also, under clause 6 of the conditions of contract, you may even be required to ensure that the wages of the contractor's staff are paid so that you don't have any issues with the labor laws or and things like that, especially their taxes and their SNIT are being paid and all of those things. So these are requirements. We have the issuance of the interim payment certificates. We are provided for under clause 14.6. So the contractor is required to submit his statements for which the engineer would then certify into an interim payment certificate. The statement will include the works executed, fluctuation if applicable, materials on site, if applicable, or sometimes there's materials freeboard. So the contractor can be paid for works for materials if it's being imported and it's being shipped. But this is if it's applicable. The contract makes that this is applicable under this contract, then we can do that. Then the amount of the retention. Normally, we tend to do a 10% for each IPC with a limit of 5%. And then the deduction of advance payment, if advance payment has been made. And then we end up with the amount due to the contractor. Then we have, it's always supported by a progress report by the contractor. The contractor is encouraged to submit progress reports. And then we have claims. The procedure for claims is provided for under SAP Plus 20.1, such that if your contractor thinks that he's entitled to something, then he must put in the claim. He's required that the claim is the notice to the claim is provided at least within 28 days of becoming aware of the event or whatever he thinks is the reason why he's entitled to this claim. And then within 42 days maximum, provide the supporting information and data. A claim must be based on a right in the contract. There are other forms of claims too, which are not. The contractual ones are arising out of the contract, should be based on what you have in the contract. So say you want to claim for time. Under what are you claiming for the time? Is it because access to site was delayed? Then you may have to start your claim from SAP Plus 2.1 and say that access to site was not given to me, so I'm making this claim under 2.1. And then for time is provided for under 8.4 as well. The other conditions there. So the claim 20.1 is not just you come under 20.1, but you have to also reference the clause under which you are making the claim. And then, yes. So that then the evidence will support what your loss has been, such that the remedy can be then computed to put you in a place whereby you would have been had the event not occurred. And then there's the issue of making a determination. This is one obligation for the engineer which cannot be delegated. That whereby any clause it provides that the engineer shall make a determination, he is required to do so. Under the claim clause 20.1, the engineer is required to make a determination on a claim. If there's a notice of dissatisfaction, if the contractor or a party is dissatisfied with the determination made, then on that basis, it goes on to send the issue or dispute to adjudication. At the end of the contract, we are looking at taking over the works. So the works are deemed to be complete when they have passed the test on completion and then completed all the works as provided for in the contract. So if you decided to provide open drains, your design was open drains, and you did not provide for any cover slabs or anything of that, taking over, when you go for the inspection, you say your contractor has not provided the cover slabs. That was not initially part of the scope of works you give the contractor. So that will probably be an additional work you are instructing at the taking over. So you cannot decide not to take over the works because the contractor has not completed the works. So normally there's an inspection done at the end of when the contractor makes the application for the taking over certificate to be issued. And then there's the requirement of a snag list is a management tool, which is done by those on site. So when the contractor makes the application, you go to site, have a look at the works and see whether it's complete. If there are few places that need to be remedied, you get him to do so. So that list is prepared. It's not for the inspection party coming from the representatives of the employer coming for the taking over the inspection to prepare the snag list at that place. At least something must be available, unless there are no defects or nothing to be remedied, and that is fine. So If taking over certificate can also be construed to be issued if the employer decides to use the works in a complete form, in its completed state. So if you start using it with its full functioning, then you assume that you have we have taken over the works. So, but in this case, whereby our road works are we are raising a parallel road for motorists to use during construction. So we are still on the road as it is being done. It becomes a bit tricky in this particular case. But then if the engineer fails to issue the certificate, if it's required to, but then the works are deemed complete and you don't issue any notice to say that for 1, 2, 3 reasons, the works are not complete, it will be deemed complete within a number of days. So the issuance of the taking over certificate will commence the defense notification period. It is necessary that this certificate is issued so that for the section of works that have been completed or the works that are complete, the insurance for that is no more the responsibility of the contractor. Responsibility for the management comes back to the employer. And then the contractor is not liable for delay damages for the works. If the section is taken over in sections or parts, then the sections that are still yet to be taken over, if completion is delayed, then the delay damages will only apply to that section. Also, if the contractor has claims and a request for time, then it is basically on the outstanding works that are yet to be completed because the section has been handed over. Or for equipment or idle equipment or personnel is within the scope of what is outstanding and not the whole of the works. The statement of completion at the end of the taking over. After the taking over certificate has been issued, there's a statement at completion, which is submitted by the contractor within 84 days of receiving the taking over certificate. It will include the value of works done, any sums to which the contractor considers to be due, and any estimates of amounts which you consider to become due under the contract. So here there are further sums that will become, which are due but haven't been paid. Say there's an outstanding claim or something like that, or other some amounts that are yet to become due, which will be something like say the works haven't been completed yet. There are certain few works that need to be done. So until those are done, the amount of money isn't due yet. So issuance of the taking over certificates, we are in the defense notification period. Is a period to complete small little works that need to be done and remedying of defects that can come up. These defects may have to be as a result of workmanship from the contractor, as a result of failure by the contractor to comply with obligations, or of design if the contractor designed any section of the works. It's not as a result of wear and tear from usage. The contractor will not bear the cost of remedying that defect. At the end of normally the defense notification period is usually a year, 365 days. It can be extended by another year if the contractor fails to remedy defects when he's been instructed to do so. So those sections are also subjected to a notification period. So when all is said and done, then the performance certificate is issued at the end of the defense notification period. So that more or less signifies that we have accepted the works. Doesn't mean that if there are any contractual obligations or anything that's outstanding, the contractor is not obliged to complete it. Then after that, after the performance certificate, we have the final certificate, which includes value of work done and further sums the contractor considers and to be due to him under the contract. So sometimes there's a draft that is submitted. that the parties agree on it, and then they end up with a final statement, which is then submitted for payment. If the statement, they can't agree to the statement, the sections they agree on will be sent, and then the outstanding bits will then also be negotiated or agreed upon for it to be also processed later. So in conclusion, these activities, I've tried to summarize a number of activities. I'm sure I've left some out, but these activities are necessary for the execution of the works and for also your documentation and ensure that the quality of work done on site is as required. But however, it's also not just the activities, it's you work with a group of people. So the human relationship on site is very key to ensure that the works are delivered well, You also need the experience of the people, of the personnel working on the site, on the project, such that for the type of work and the works also helps in the delivery of projects and ensures that it's done smoothly and successfully. Thank you very much.